If you're a homeowner that's considering selling your house, you have to understand what the process is after accepting an offer. Because if you don't know what happens after you accept an offer, you can find yourself with long delays. You can also find yourself contractually obligated to perform something that you didn't even think about. So today, I'm going to share with you exactly what to do after you accept an offer. Now, before we jump in, I want to welcome you to the Invested Homeowner YouTube channel. And my name is Jaime Resendez. I'm a realtor and team leader able to help you make money in real estate, whether you're buying or selling. Now, once you accept an offer, there's realistically 3 phases to consider from contract to close. The first phase is what's commonly known as the option period. The second phase is what I call the heavy lifting phase. And the third phase is what I call the final stretch. Now, what kicks everything off is the offer formally being accepted. That's what launches the option period. Now, once the offer has been accepted, the contract and appropriate documentation gets delivered to all parties involved. As an example, the title company, all of the agents, and all of the clients involved in the transaction. Now, it's at this point that the inspector actually gets scheduled to come out to the property and do an inspection. Now, one quick reminder, since I practice in Texas, I'm speaking more from the Texas norms. This is what happens in Texas. Now, all of the option money and earnest money that was promised in the contract does need to be delivered within 3 business days. Now, it's important that you as a homeowner / home seller understand that your buyer has 3 days to deliver the option and earnest money in order to fulfill the contract. Now, the option period typically concludes 5 days, 7 days, or 10 days after you accept an offer. Now, note, during this option period, this is when a majority of the contracts fall apart because it's in this option period that the buyer gets a deeper look at your property and gets to know what's wrong with it so they can either ask you to repair it or understand themselves how much they'll need to budget to repair it themselves. Now, of course, the option period is something that's negotiable, so you get to dictate how many option days you give that buyer. So just know that during this option period, it's not a done deal. A buyer can back out of that contract for whatever reason or no reason at all. Now, once we get into the heavy lifting period, this is when you as a homeowner need to work very closely with the title company. They're going to be asking for a few things, so make sure that you're timely with those requests, especially if you have an HOA, a homeowners association, because you will need your HOA's involvement in order for you to close on time. Also, if you still have a mortgage on your home, you need to get your lender involved because they will ultimately need to get paid off at closing. Now, it's also important that here during the heavy lifting period, you schedule and complete any repairs that you committed to making. Now, if you happen to have the home survey from when you purchased the property, fantastic. But if you don't, you do need to request a new survey. It's also during this period that typically the buyer's lender orders an appraisal because they know that they're going to be moving forward with the contract given that the contract is no longer in option. It's also during this phase that you need to start executing on your moving plans because you're going to be out of that home within a couple of weeks. Now, during this heavy lifting phase, you also want to have your agent confirm that the appraisal has come back to the lender and there's no issue. Now, I understand that that's not your lender. That is the buyer's lender. However, you need to make sure that there is no issue with the appraisal given that there is a clause in the contract that gives your buyer an out in the event that the home does not appraise. And your buyer does have a certain amount of days that they can use that clause to get out of that contract. So make sure that you know how many days that actually is. And it's also at this point that you as a homeowner will be asked for proof of any repairs or any concessions that you made, because sometimes the repairs that you committed to making are actually a contingency on the loan being approved. So you need to prove to the lender that you've made those repairs. Now, the reason that I call this the heavy lifting phase is not because there's really too much heavy lifting that needs to happen from a home seller's perspective, because in all reality, it's just a couple of calls, it's just a couple of emails, it's a couple of quotes, this, that, or the other. It's not that involved. It's mostly involved for your home buyer, but you as a homeowner, you need to make sure that everything that's in that contract is being fulfilled, especially the financing part, because if the financing does not go through, well, the house doesn't sell and you have to put it back onto the market. But I want you as a homeowner getting all the heavy lifting out of the way so as to get into the final stretch with much less stress. Because in the final stretch, time is of the essence, especially for you, because you have to be out of the house. So a few days prior to close, you need to schedule a time that you're going to go into the title company and actually close. Many of you home sellers are working, so you need to take some time off from your work to go and do that. You also need to get a hold of all of those 1-800 phone numbers for those utility companies and schedule the cancellation of your utilities. You'll want to notify the United States Postal Office that you're moving. You'll also want to give yourself enough time to move out, so don't leave it to the last day that you can possibly be in the home. Get out of there as quickly as you can, because your buyer will do a final walkthrough the day prior to closing, if not the morning of closing. So make sure that they see the home just as they're going to take possession of it. You also want to provide the correct deposit information to the title company so they know where to deposit your funds. And then of course, you go to closing and life is good. So once you accept an offer, please make sure to use these 3 phases, because you're going to find your home selling experience be much better. And if you would like this exact timeline for when you sell your home, make sure you comment down below timeline and I'll make this available to you.